Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and from McFarlane Toys, we are featuring from the DC Multiverse, we have Deathstroke. And this is Deathstroke as he appears in DC Rebirth. To the best of my knowledge, I believe this might be the second Deathstroke figure we've gotten so far in the DC Multiverse line. The only one that comes to mind that we got was Arkham Origins Deathstroke from the Arkham Knight series of video games. I believe that one came out, that figure must have came out at least maybe 2 to almost 2.5 years ago, I think. But this came out recently, and I'm excited to check it out. One thing that's very disappointing, if you've been collecting DC Multiverse figures for a while now, is the fact that they omit firearms from their action figures. I think it's something that came down from DC and Warner Brothers, and McFarlane's prohibited from including like guns, with their characters. And it kind of hurts because some of these characters, their whole arsenal or their weapons are kind of dependent on firearms, much like Deathstroke. So, if this is a figure where you're expecting to get a lot of like rifles and pistols, forget about it. You're just getting a knife and a sword. On the back of the box, we have some beautiful artwork here. And I've said this before, it's kind of weird how they're kind of going back and forth between action figure photography and comic book artwork. This looks like, if I had to guess, I think this is done by artist Tony Daniels, I think. For a second, I wanted to say Jim Lee, but there's something about this that looks like Tony Daniels. The figure looks great. My first impressions of the figure when I first saw it is that he's very streamlined. Unlike the Arkham Origins Deathstroke, this guy, he's done away with a lot of the bulk. This one's a lot more, like I said, he's a lot more streamlined. He doesn't have excessive body armor. It's very minimalist for Deathstroke. So let's get started. Alright, so we have the trading card and then the display stand right here. First impressions of Deathstroke. I like the color scheme a lot. He's kind of like a matte black with some orange and gray highlights. And it's a very sleek looking costume too. I'm actually liking this figure a lot the more I handle him. Initially I thought I'd be kind of lukewarm to the figure because for me, I like Deathstroke to like be outfitted with like a lot of weapons. And this kind of look, it kind of takes me back a little to his not necessarily, it reminds me of his original design, but it's a little bit more of a modern take. His original costume had blue on the costume, whereas this one's this predominantly all black. There's no blue to be seen on it. Deathstroke stands in at a little under 7 3/4. So my first exposure to Deathstroke was in the early 90s. I was familiar with him from his appearances in Teen Titans. And then when he had his miniseries, Deathstroke, the Terminator, that was something I kind of got into, partially because I was a big fan of artist Mike Zack, who did the covers to like Punisher and stuff, and he was doing the covers for the Deathstroke, the Terminator miniseries, and I thought those were wonderful. And then I picked up the book, and I've always kind of had an affinity for Deathstroke. I'm not necessarily the most hardcore fan, but there is something about him that really draws me to the character. I'm just trying to get his legs in a neutral pose, and one of his ankles just seems really tight, so I'm going to try to fix that real quick. Alright, his ankle does not want to straighten out. I might just have to deal with that later. Yeah, this is frustrating. I always have I mean, if you watch my videos, I always have issues with like stuck joints or something. And yeah, this is stuck. I'll have to fix that later. So I'm having an issue here. His foot is stuck to the ankle joint and it's not rotating. All right. I like this a lot too. I like how he can store his sword onto his body. It's pretty neat. Alright, we're going to have to review him with this kind of like gimpy foot here, I guess. Alright, let's get started. First impressions, the sculpting is really well done. As you can see, it's a very clean figure. Different textures throughout his body armor. He kind of retains that traditional, almost like scale mail that he has asymmetrically over his left breast and left arm. Kind of has like a very like off-white, light gray color on the arm over here also, and it's kind of detailed. It's a somewhat modernist approach to the character. On the back he has storage for his sword. It's not a sheath, it's just more so a clip. So you can slide that there. Oh, wait, this is interesting. So the figure only came with one knife and one sword, yet there's actually two places of... Oh, no, I take it back. Alright, for a second I thought on his belt here, I saw a knife sheath. But unfortunately, this is not functional. It's just for show. You know, the functional knife sheath is actually on his leg right here. So you can store the knife like that. Very clean looking belt buckle and utility belt. It's kind of reminiscent of like Batman. He has... I don't know what the purpose of this is, but... Oh. Okay, so I'm noticing something right here. So apparently this figure has two leg straps on his thigh right here. And then there's kind of like what looks to be like the impression of what was supposed to be a hole. So if I had to guess, I'm guessing at some point in this action figure's development, it's possible that the prototype or early versions of this figure must have had like a holster. Or at least a holster, you know, that held like a pistol. You know, whether or not the holster had the molded pistol or if it was actually like a functional holster. Because it seems kind of odd that you'd have these leg straps here and not have anything. And it's even odder that you have that little kind of socket in there. So, yeah, if I had to guess, at one point in time, this guy probably had a holster here for a pistol. It's unfortunate that, you know, you don't get firearms with the McFarlane figures. But you can easily remedy that by, you know, going to the Spawn website and just ordering that Spawn, like, I think it's like a weapons upgrade set or whatever it's called. So, it's a nice figure overall. I'm liking this a lot. You know, if you want a modern rendition of Deathstroke, this is the way to go. Yeah, it's just overall, it's just a really clean figure. It's not overly done, you know. It seems like all the textures that are there for a reason. Yeah, again, I'm really thinking that this was supposed to be a holster here, because you can notice there's another strap that's like kind of molded right there along the butt and the leg. So yeah, I like this a lot too. The sheath around the leg. I wonder if this comes off or if this is sculpted on. Yeah, it feels like this might be a separate piece right here. This might be glued on, I think. Yeah, it's glued on. Let's see. In terms of articulation, Deathstroke's head rotates. Does he look down? Looks down pretty well. Does he look up? Looks up all right. Arms rotate. Whoops. He has that ball-socketed butterfly joint. Bicep cut. He has double-pinned elbows. Articulated wrists. I'm really happy that the glove and the wrist do a good job of covering the ball joint. That's kind of one of my big pet peeves with some of the McFarlane figures. He does have a hand that has a trigger finger right here. It's his left hand. So, you know, initially this guy, I guess, was supposed to come with a weapon of some sort or a firearm. Cut mid-torso so he could swivel, crunch about there. Arch back like that. Wow, that's pretty far back. The one thing I can say about this figure right now is that, like for some McFarlane figures, you know, they might have all the points of articulation, but, you know, to try to get them to move the way you want could sometimes be difficult, because, you know, sometimes the pieces don't work well together, or there's like excessive amounts of plastic that's like colliding with something else. This guy, everything about him moves really smoothly. You know, it's a very natural moving figure. As you can see, you're not running into any issues where he's like, his leg is like bumping into a skirt, or his arm is bumping into a cape, or like a sheath on his back. Everything about this figure it just flows. And I like the fact that he's very streamlined. Yeah, I'm really warming up to this figure. I think it's pretty cool. It kind of, I mean, if you're a big fan of like the Snake Eyes character from G.I. Joe, I think this might win you over. Like I said, you know, Deathstroke initially in his earlier costumes always had blue. You know, this guy is mostly black, and it's a nice shade of black also. It's not like a deep black. It's a matte black, but also kind of borderlines on the gray side. So it makes for a somewhat photogenic character, especially with the contrast of the orange. I think the selection of orange here is really nice. It has some punch to it. And the posability for this guy, it's really well done. I think this is great. Yeah, I'm liking this figure a lot. The only thing is, the only thing that would make this figure perfect is if it had weapons. You know, that's my big issue. But I think it's a really standout figure. There's something I'm kind of like contemplating just getting another one, just to like, you know, possibly customize it or just change it up a little. But I mean, just look at that. That's amazing. Really nice figure. Really well executed. I'm not always too keen on some of the Rebirth or New 52 designs, but this one's surprisingly well done, especially for the action figure. You know, if you're a big fan of Deathstroke, this is definitely a must purchase. You know, if you need villains for your Teen Titans, unfortunately, I don't think there's any Teen Titan characters in the Multiverse line outside of Cyborg. Who else? We still need a Connor Kent. We need a Donna Troy. We need a Beast Boy. We need a Raven. So, I don't know. But yeah, this is great, excellent action figure. If I did rate this guy on a scale of 1 to 10, alright, so I'm going to say it now. Even though he doesn't come with weapons, perfect 10. It sounds a little bit generous, but I have no complaints about this guy. everything about him just works. You know, if he had weapons, of course that'd make it perfect, but you know, the articulations won me over, the proportions, the sculpting. It's a really, really well done figure. I think this is great. Really stoked on this one. And I have multiple Deathstroke figures in my collection, and that's something I'm actually going to look into doing, is doing some action figure reviews on older action figures, because I realize not everyone's been collecting since like day one. So I think part of my channel is going to start focusing on like older figures, like stuff produced by like Mattel with their DC Classics, and you know, DC with their like DC Direct and DC Collectibles. Because there's multiple versions of Deathstroke, and I'd like to explore all of them and share that with you, especially if you're like new to collecting. You know, if there's a character you like, you know, for example, Deathstroke, there's different iterations of the character, and there might be an action figure in a costume that you might prefer more than this one. Alright, so real quick before we sign off, let me take out another Deathstroke figure while we're at it. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that McFarlane gave us another Deathstroke figure. This one's from the Batman Arkham Origins video game. Now, this is my favorite Deathstroke figure, but just to let you know in advance, it's not 100% stock. I actually took the head from a Mattel DC Classics Deathstroke, and I swapped it onto this body. I'm a bigger fan of Deathstroke when he doesn't have the helmet on, because I love the eye patch. I think it adds more character and story to the you know, to the villain. Other than this, I mean, this helmet's cool with the asymmetrical design, but I think for a character like him, it's a bigger statement having the crazy eye patch. And this is actually one of my favorite figures in the DC Multiverse line by McFarlane. It's insanely detailed. This, along with the Arkham Knight Batman, are two of my favorite figures in the entire line. Unfortunately, this guy doesn't come with any weapons either. He does have a pistol that's sculpted onto his holster, but you can't take it out. And then he does come with his sword, but this is like an extreme version of Deathstroke. You know, if this guy is very modern and minimalist, this guy over here, you know, takes it in a completely opposite direction. And I love this figure. It's really well done. It's a little bit pricier on the secondary market. You're looking at a figure that might command anywhere between $50 to $80, depending on the seller. And, you know, just as a reminder, this is not the stock look. The actual figure does come with a helmeted head. You know, I just swapped on the Mattel head onto this body. And the figure, essentially looks like this. I believe this is the render from the video game. So the action figure actually comes with this helmet. So as you can see, big difference in their presentation. You know, if you've played the Arkham Asylum games, Arkham Knight, Arkham Origins, Arkham City, you know, the character designs and the costumes, they're like really over the top, and you know, they're pretty awesome, pretty badass. So yeah, two different offerings of a very popular character from McFarlane Toys. If you can't find this one, you know, I think this one is excellent. He just needs a couple of guns and you're good to go, but I like this guy a lot. This is really cool. Alright, with that being said, let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So, until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.